Okay, it is 8:04 and it is Thursday, August the 8th, and welcome to Introduction to Criminal Law. My name is Richard Wright, and I will be your instructor for the next 6 weeks. And so today I'm going to lay out the requirements for this course, the activities that you have. I'm going to provide answers to questions that I've already received from students already. So I'm going to go ahead and let me put up the classroom. Give me a minute there. You can't see what I do because I'm not sharing yet with you. You'll see in just a minute. Okay. All right. So now let's go back into it. Okay, so now I'm going to share it. Remember, you can't see this, hear me, until you activate the audio. You don't have to go out. You just have to go to the audio tab to activate it. Okay, so I'm going to go forward and share my screen. Okay. I'm going to move this up just a bit there. Move it over here a little bit. Okay, you can see the first thing that you see is the instructor information. The instructor information tells my name, my phone number, which is 630-660-8480, and that is my cell phone, and I give students the privilege and ability to be able to reach out to me quite easily based on the next statement. Students can feel free to call me, text me, or email me any hour of the day except the 25th hour of the day. And it means what it says, and it's not just something there to entertain you. I have students who have called me, text me, and emailed me late at night, and I've been able to respond to them pretty fast because sometimes I've been up working late, or either I'll get it the next day. The point of the matter is that if you do text me, make sure you include your name, the course that you're in as well, and then, of course, provide details for the question. I will say this, that I prefer talking to students because of the fact that we lose communication in emails and texting, but communication spoken directly to students will help to provide information that you need. So anyway, that's what we do. Now, the 25th hour of the day, you figure that one out, and then you'll understand why I'm saying that. One of the things that is important in this class is rubrics. Notice that it's highlighted. Rubrics are what I use to grade your assignments. That's the criteria that I use. And students oftentimes will reach out to me and says, why did I lose the percentage of points? I said, no, look at how many points you lost and why you lost those points. Because at the bottom, after every rubric in your grade book, you will see a section for comments where I explain to you what you need to do to make sure that you do well as far as the future is concerned in your assignments. I don't give students the opportunity to rewrite assignments very often because I have so many students. And if I did that for one, then it would open up a floodgate and I would end up doing double grading. The other thing is that I tell students is that with the rubric, make sure you understand, generally there are three sections. There's a content section, which contains the details of the written assignment. The second section is a formatting section, which talks about paragraphs and maybe the page length for the written assignment. And then the third part is the, and I'll show you that when we get to rubrics, that involve dealing with APA, which is the next issue that I have here. We provide resources to help you with APA here in this class. There's some on the page. Right here to the left, there's something I'm going to go and show you in a few minutes that'll help you understand APA. APA, though, in the most common form, or the simplest form, is citations in the body. Now remember, citations in the body are not just a citation in the paper. The citations support the statements. There are times when students provide information and details, and I can tell that they took that from someplace but don't provide citations. They might throw in one citation. Okay, you got it now. So now you can hear me. The citation will support the statements in your paper. And I usually require students to put citations throughout the body of the paper. Now, not like every sentence or something like that, maybe at the end of the paragraph. And of course, if you use a direct quote, then you will, of course, put the citation after that quote, not at the end of the sentence, end of the paragraph, rather. So, and the purpose for citations is to make sure that we know where you got that information that you included in your paper. And then references at the end of the paper, reference page. Now, your reference page and citations should match. For example, if you have 3 references and you have just one citation, there's something wrong, because the references should all be reflected as sources in the body of the paper as citations. And when you, we take a few minutes and look at this academic integrity video, which I'm going to take a few minutes and go over with you, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. I'll be taking off my headset so that you'll be able to hear it. But anyway, APA, this is ongoing with the course. Most common, one of the most common ways that students lose points is with APA. Another common thing is people do not run their papers through Grammarly. You each have a Grammarly account. The Grammarly account, you could go under resources. And it's something that you should have covered during orientation. But the Grammarly account is not an account that you used with your own email address. So if you clicked on resources, resources tab is very valuable. I'm going to show you right now. Here it tells you a lot of information, but I want to focus here on Grammarly. Grammarly is used for grammar, spelling, and a plagiarism checker. And how you create an account, you click here. So if you actually were to click on this, it will tell you how to create a Grammarly account. All right. Now, it tells you, notice, use your Rasmussen student email. Okay. And if you registered, use your Rasmussen email, you won't need to enter the access code. So, because the access code gives you what the school has already paid for, and also make sure that you check the plagiarism box. It won't automatically give it to you when you get ready to run your papers through Grammarly. All right. So people will lose points, and also I will report the information to the school that a person has a high percentage of Grammarly. All right. So of plagiarism. All right. So now let's go back to. We'll come back to this in a minute because I want to show you that video. All right. So the other issue is critical thinking. So critical thinking is something that is very, very, very important, as you will discover in this school if you're new to the school, because of the fact that critical thinking is what employers have indicated to us as one of the one of the transferable skills. And I'm a big critical thinker because I went to law school, as you been able to discover if you took a look at the student lounge, and you know things about me. If you read my email, you know that about me. You see the JD. The JD stands for Juris Doctor, which is a law degree from Northwestern University School of Law. And so anyway, critical thinking is natural for me. But critical thinking is very important in terms of writing your papers for reducing your Grammarly plagiarism percentage. You'll see a comment if you do get hit. Now, we have a critical thinking video down here that if you scroll down to the critical thinking video, and if you copy and paste this onto your browser, which, by the way, we prefer in most cases that you use Firefox. Firefox seems to work the best. The one that works the least is Internet Explorer. Chrome works also, but Firefox is the one that you'll find. If you contact personal support, which I'll be talking about in a minute, then they'll tell you that. So anyway, here's a critical thinking video right here, and you can take time to look at that. And there's a short video that will help you. All right. So all of these are very important in all the assignments. So rubrics, APA, Grammarly that I just shared with you, and critical thinking. And critical thinking and Grammarly are connected, are all very important in terms of grading the assignments. This course homepage has a lot of good information for you. Now, here is something that you need to lock in from the very, very, very beginning. It's all caps. A reminder, and I read it to you, that you are required to conduct research for all papers. All papers. That means the sole source of your papers cannot be the textbook. You will lose 2 points for failure to conduct research. One of the reasons for assignments is to be able to sharpen your information literacy, helping you be able to find various sources that are credible to support your information that you are completing in terms of your assignments. And it is very, very important that you understand that the textbook is not the source that you use frequently. We want you to find other sources. Sure, you can use the textbook, but and the module, but we want you to try to refrain from leaning on those sources too much. We want you to go into the library and learning center that we have in this, that you should have been introduced to during your orientation, that helps you to understand where you can find information, okay? If not, the course homepage here provides information. So again, all written assignments also should be in APA format. We've already kind of talked about that, and I kind of like gave you a little bit of information there. Double space, people. Double space, not single space. And Romans 12. That's the font that you should have. You'll discover that when you look at the APA citations, APA sources to help you. And then finally, you'll lose 1 point for not providing a cover sheet for all written assignments. Very important as well. And then these are some helpful resources that you can take time to look at on your own for library answers, the writing guide. Remember, I talked about the resources that the Library and Learning Center have. There is a, okay, I'll just take a second and click on this. So you see it. There it is right there. And it helps you to be able to find things. You can hover over these, click over it, and it provides information. The ones that you know, guides. Now let me show you something about guides, just so you know. When you click on guides, it will lead you to your School of Guide, which is School of Justice Studies. So you click on that, and then it tells you about research, database, writing, APA toolkit, that's another place, and tutoring and other issues involved. And there's some really good things. This gentleman here to the left, he is a librarian. You can chat with him when it's, or schedule an appointment to help you to find information that you need as far as resources are concerned. So we have the ability to be able to provide you with credible resources. And so the school has invested a lot of time to make sure that we ensure student success by utilizing these. So you have these links that I put in my classes to help. Then there's some tutoring information. By the way, tutoring is not just for students who are struggling. Tutoring is also there to help students who run into problems that it can help you get a better grade as well. I have many students who are Dean's List Honor Roll who are actually the student tutors and have had these courses, and I know their names because they either are or have been students of mine in classes that I have taught since I've been here at this school. And it tells you anyway, if you click on these things, how to do these things. Then I have some helpful articles that are here that I recommend that you can put them on your desktop, or you can print them, or both. How to go beyond the textbook, I already kind of talked about that. Analytical tips for criminal justice students, and analytical tips involve pretty much operating with your criminal justice papers and your critical thinking. Information literacy, it tells you also about that. You'll hear me talk about that in a few when I get to the syllabus. Okay, got a lot of material we'll be covering today. The sessions won't go like this all the time. I'll be talking about the content, but more I'm talking about what is expected of you to help you succeed in this course, this first session. And then how to reference for criminal justice students. Talks about how to cite cases properly. Whenever you use a case, try not to use just the citation that you find from your research, but look for the official case citation. For example, if it's a Supreme Court case, it might say a number 398, then it might say U.S., and then it'll have another number like 298, and then in parentheses, then you'll put the year, like 2019. So I'm just giving you a hypothetical, but you'll see that in there as well. You don't have to worry about this last one here. So then we get down here to rubrics that are located in each written assignment. I will share that in a few minutes. And I already told you how important rubrics are. And then there is a generic rubric that we use for discussion posts that's used throughout the school. And basically, when you get into discussion assignments, you should be aware of the fact that your discussion posts initially are due on Tuesdays, generally, and your initial post. Your reply post is due on Saturday. However, because the course started yesterday for term 2, your initial post and reply post this week and this week will be due on Saturday. Both. You'll see that when we get to the announcement in a few minutes as well. And in the discussion posts, they should be content oriented. They shouldn't be one-liners or very short. I want to see some indication that you've given some thought to the statements that you include in the actual rubric itself, in the paper or discussion post that you submit. I do encourage you to provide more than one reply post, but the key thing is that you want to get your posts in on time. Now, as I said, this week your posts are due Saturday. Both are due this Saturday, which is the 10th. So you want to make sure that you have your initial post and reply post completed by then. You can complete them before then, but that's the deadline. So by Sunday, I won't be accepting any discussion posts, or you will get a 0 for it up front. The other thing about discussion posts is that in the normal course, you'll see in the calendar, and the calendar is something that already gives you your scheduled out information that you can have in terms of knowing what is due when, that your discussion posts starting next week will be due Tuesdays, and your reply posts Saturdays. Now, if you submit your discussion posts on Sunday, you will get no points. But except, there's an exception to that. The exception is if you submitted your discussion posts before the end of Saturday, initial post, then you submit your reply post on that next day, it's okay, but I'll deduct a point. Now, that's just something that I do to help my students. However, be aware, no deal if both discussion posts are submitted that Sunday. Okay? Very, 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 very important that you understand that, because I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about discussion posts. When I get to the syllabus, I'm going to move past that part, so I'm getting it out of the way right now. So each week, you will have a discussion post that will do, and I'll be talking about how many points that you get for that in a few minutes. Moving right along, your live lecture sessions. Of course, this is how you found me. This is how you get into this classroom. Now, this is not how you see the video, the recorded video. The recorded video is not this. There are students that say, oh, I was looking for the recorded video. I went to your link. That's for the live session. But once it's recorded, what I do is I convert each session, including today, to a MP4 document, and then I upload it to YouTube. So the link that you're going to get will say YouTube on it, and if you click on that, it'll take you to the lecture. Why do I do that? For a number of reasons. Sometimes people have trouble using WebEx, and also you could use even though there's an app, but most students don't do that. And there is also an app used for your iPhone and for the iPad and Android pads as well. So the key thing is that you should be aware that your videos will be there. Now, each week when the videos are recorded, they'll be under the recording. You'll see it in this box. So today you'll see week 1 open house after this session. Not immediately after, because it takes a little bit for me, and it might not be until tonight that I get it done. But I will begin to convert it, because it's going to be a rather lengthy video, especially for the first week. Now, you can also be aware that I will be emailing that video link to you as well in your course email. Okay, so but here's the schedule for lectures beginning this morning, 8 to 10, and actually it's going to be 8 to pretty close to 9:30, but I'm going to try to cut it off close to 9:30, but no later than 10 today. And this is an informational video, so it's going to be longer. Our videos that we do every week will generally be 1 hour, and they will not take place in the mornings. They will take place in the evening. So today is open house, and that's why I'm going over all the procedures to answer questions that will help you. This will be a video that you can save and refer back to during the course of the next 6 weeks. So weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is the next 5 lectures, will take place beginning next Tuesday, which is the 13th. And it will be 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So remember, if you're on Eastern Time, it's going to be yours is going to say 9:30 to 10:30, but that's why it says CST. If you're to the west, it's going to be different as well. The key thing is notice the time zone that I am in. That's also going to be the time zone for your assignments due. You must attend the lectures or listen to the archive. Each week there will be a keyword or phrase given, and you'll be required to provide that to me. And that will be required to be provided to me this week by Sunday. As every Sunday, you will be required to do it. So today is going to be a little shorter because the quarter starts late. But I couldn't take it into week 2 because then your assignments would be off in terms of week 2. So I had to start with this short week 1 because the week 1 started yesterday and will end Sunday. Now, so you're going to give me that keyword by Sunday. All right. So now let's go over on this side. Here are some valuable announcements that will help you, and I'm not going to go over them much, but it gives the writing process and explains things that help you. These are announcements. Very important that you check your announcements. The APA, I already shared with you, but here's another place that you can get the guides to APA. And if you were to click on this, for example, it will take you to, excuse me, to this page. And it helps you to understand. It gives you a template, all kinds of resources that will help you. And I suggest that you take time to look at that. And then there's a quick start video for formatting citations and references. Very, very, very important. And the video is not that long. It's very short. And then there's other things in here as well. So you want to utilize that resource. And it also tells you about preventing plagiarism and things of that nature as well. So this little page here helps you with your writing. All right, so now you should have seen this, Let's put this, make that less, and let's open this up. This is the first announcement that I welcome you. I told you my name. I told you what my degrees are in, and then I told you a little bit about me. And then all of these items that are highlighted are very important to get to know. One right now, the student lounge, that's under the discussion tab, and then you know about that already, and you provide your information there. Just to show you a little bit, let me show you. Oops, I don't know what's going on with this. There we go. So here's the student lounge right here, and I see that I have some students. So I click on this, and then I can open it up, and I'll just open it up so you can see. First thing that you'll see is mine right here, and it tells you about me, and there it is right there, and you can find that information. And then it tells you some more things that are little helpful things that I supply to students as well. And then there's a student, Valerie Carr, and if you should be able to see that and be able to respond to that as well. So anyway, that's the student lounge. Okay, let's go back to where we were before that. There we go. So now, dealing with the welcome announcement, student lounge, course mail, where it says course messages. That's where you click on to get your messages in for the course. And that's where most of my information will be sent to you. I recommend checking that frequently. Syllabus. We're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. And then the course calendar, we're going to go over that in just a few minutes. And then there's a place where it says general course questions. If you have questions that anybody can answer and that they're not private information, you can post that information in there, and I will see it, or one of your colleagues may see it. And a lot of times what it does, it provides you with information that will help you to get on track as far as a issue is concerned, or you're not able to reach me and you need an answer right away. Resources tab, I already shared that with you, and I'm going to go back to that in a minute to see the academic integrity video. The report tab is something I don't use, but it gives you access to your grade book. It's right there under my grades. But I don't have any grades, so and that's not the grades that you get from me, but you have a tab for that. And then these are things that we've already talked about as well. And then this is a reminder about what's taking place right now regarding the lectures and so forth. All right. So that's your welcome announcement. Pay close attention to these highlighted issues. Do that before you start your assignments, because of the fact that you want to be familiar with what's going to happen, and it'll save you a lot of headache as well. So now, let's go to our week. Each week, you will see at least one announcement. This says week 1 announcement, which tells you what is required for this week. Now, I already had a student ask me about this, so I'm going to explain it to you. Is that it tells you the title of the module, which is Crime and the Constitution. And then I sent you PowerPoints for chapters 1 and 2 of the textbook that you're supposed to be reading, which is A Brief Introduction to Criminal Law. Now, these activities are not graded. These are things that will help you to understand the module, such as types of law, what is crime, the Fourth Amendment probable cause, key terms, and for practice, elements of an offense and classifications of crime, and then a practice quiz. And I'm going to show you that in just a few minutes when we get into the actual module, but I'm not going to go into detail with the module today. I will do that starting next week, but I'm trying to show you how it works. And then this reminds you about what's taking place now. And then you'll see your discussion assignment, which this week is police dogs and warrantless searches. And you'll notice what I said earlier, that your initial post is due Saturday and your reply post is due Saturday. Don't get comfortable with your initial post being due on Saturday. Our students tell me, I thought in week 1 that it was due on Saturday and that every week. No, you're going to lose points. They're due Tuesday. And there's the reason why it's not due this Tuesday for week 1 is because week 1 didn't start until Wednesday, which was yesterday. All right? So, but you'll see when I get to the course calendar. Finally, there's a written assignment for this week, Elements of Criminal Law, which I'll go over in a few minutes in the module. And your written assignments are due every Sunday, except when we get to the last week, but we won't worry about that now. But set in your mind that your written assignments, other than your discussion posts, are due on Sundays, 11:59 p.m. And you'll discover, too, that the key word or phrase that will be given is to provide you with a way to get your points for that as well. Now, don't look at the lecture and speed through it to get to the key phrase. You're doing yourself a disservice, and it adversely affects your grade because of the fact that there's information that I give you. I'm one of these people who break down into little pieces the answers to most of your questions. But what students do is try to start out and jump right in. No. Get a clear understanding about the expectations. That's why I take the time in this open house. And then I talk about this. And then I encourage you to start strong and finish strong. And then I'm going to share with you at the end, adversity is the springboard to success, what that is all about. Some of you might already know who've had me in other classes, but I take some time to make sure that you understand that I understand that you're going to go through some adversity. So now let's go to the syllabus. Excuse me. The syllabus tells you the course name, tells you my name. There's that phone number again. There's my email. Now, you could email me without including 2, and I'll get that in my regular email. But the 2 is in there because of the fact that it's used for the course mail. Of course, you don't have to do that if you're using the course mail. You'll just make sure that I'm one of the people that receive the email that you're sending to. And then this is a reminder of something that I've already provided to you. And then there's this course description. There's a textbook that we talked about. The requirements for this course that week 1 through 5, it tells you when assignments are due. And then your final week is the last day of class, which we'll talk about that. So 1 through 5, Sunday midnight, we already talked about that. All right. And this is a term 2 course. So it's same thing. Both are the same thing as far as due dates for written assignments. Weekly discussions, we've already talked about that. So I'm not going to go into that in detail. Documentation style relates to the resources tab, and then the library learn. We talked about that already. Now, there's a combination of things in this course. There's readings, which I tell you each week, your discussions, your practice activities, and I said it helps you prepare for your graded quizzes and different assignments. And then your written assignments are provided as well. And then there's two graded quizzes. There's one in week 3, and then there's one in week 6. So the first quiz involves modules 1 through 3. The second quiz involves 4 through 6. Now, you can consider those as midterm and final exams in this course. And then the live lectures, we've already talked about that. Now, let's look at the grading criteria. The grading criteria involves discussions, tells you how many points you get for your discussions. It tells you written assignments, and it tells you the percentage, quizzes, and then your live lectures. So you can see here that of your 100 points, your first 3 items are very important. You don't want to miss the live classrooms, because not just because you'll not get these 30 points, but you get 5 points for having it on time, 4 points if it's late, 3 if it's even later. So each day you'll lose points. But anyway, the point of the matter is that that equals 100 points. That's how you get your grades. So how do you get your grade up? By doing your assignments, following the rubrics, asking questions where needed, and then getting them in on time. My goal is to get you from A to B minus, or not to go down, but what I'm trying to say, that's the area I generally want students to end up in. I want you to end up here with A, but I'm saying that B. I'm going to tell you this right now. Do not text me, email me, call me, and ask me how to get a C in my course. Do not ask me how to pass. I'm telling you how to pass. Students inevitably get to weeks 4 and even week 5 and say, what do I need to do at this point to pass? And I don't really have an answer for you, quite honestly, because I tell you at the beginning what it takes to pass. But I don't prepare C students. I definitely don't prepare D and F students. I want to prepare you to be A and B students, honor roll, dean's list. So you get those gold cords. So you get those certificates. That's my goal in the classes that I teach. I can't speak for other professors, and that's how I operate. All right. Now, let's talk about the transferable skills for a little bit here. As I said earlier, the school has identified certain skills that employers want, and that's why they call it transferable skills. So they transfer from your educational experience to your professional experience. Number 1, you hear communication all the time. Written and oral communication. I spend a lot of time helping you with your written communication by the rubrics, by the way that I grade your papers, and also the comments that are made. If you pay attention to the modules, you'll discover communication is involved as well. So written and oral communication is something that's very important, because you as a criminal justice professional will find your reports, your statements critiqued in a court of law. And attorneys, as I did many times as a defense attorney, use police reports and other reports in court, and the communication, even the grammar, I would attack the person on to show that they're not professional. So communication is very important. These are not the order, but these are the things. Critical thinking, I've already talked about that. Very, 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 very important. Employers want critical thinkers. They don't want just people who can research, copy, and paste information. They want you to be able to think. Digital fluency. Everything is digital. You have to be able to navigate the systems using Word, using this particular LMS, the Blackboard, learning how to use WebEx properly, how to be able to look at other sources, how to conduct research, things of that nature. I am a person who came out of law school in 1978. There was no such thing as that. It was all paper and pencil or paper and pen. But now it's digital, and I'm up to speed on being able to do so. And when you get out here, you're going to use systems as a law enforcement officer, as a paralegal, as a law clerk, as a lawyer, as a probation officer, parole officer, whether you work in human services, whatever areas you work in, you're going to use digital because it's here. Diversity and teamwork. You're going to work together in teams. How are you working in teams in this course? The answer is you're going to be commenting and responding to each other's discussion posts. And you're going to find yourself in a situation where you'll be working together with someone else responding to the comments they make and vice versa. When you leave here, and you probably already know that, those of you who are in the workforce right now already know you work with individuals from other areas. Such as a lawyer, I work with accountants. When I was a police officer, I worked with forensic and other people as well. So you work with people from various teams, and we get you to understand that in this course. If we had more people in the live lectures, I would put you in teams and have you work out on different things, but unfortunately, we don't have great attendance for the live lectures, and so therefore, people tend to want to look at the video later. So diversity. We're at a time now where there's all kinds of hate going on in this country, and based on the violence that's taken place, that it's even followed up with that. Diversity is something that this school has a platform. We even have a diversity and inclusion committee that I used to be active in, but because of my schedule, it's hard for me to stay active in. But diversity is very important, where you recognize that people from various backgrounds you're going to come into contact with, various beliefs, sexual preferences, LGBT. You're going to have individuals who are not LGBT. You're going to have individuals who are from different cultures, different religions. And so you're going to have to learn to respect those individuals for who they are. You're going to have to learn that this country is a melting pot. We've learned that as a kid, but now it seems like some people are moving away from that. We are a nation of immigrants, people from all over the country. We, as a country, have always had the policy of welcoming individuals who were being attacked in their countries to come here. But now that trend seems to be under attack. The point of the matter is that we at this school and this professor and employers generally want you to respect each other. I may not agree with some of the posts that you put, but I won't shoot you down. I might disagree with you, but the point of the matter is I'll give you reasons why. But do not consider it as a personal attack because I disagree with you. Which, by the way, now that I'm saying this, I encourage students to be open-minded in terms of putting their thoughts in their assignments and in their discussion posts. But do not use vulgar language or things of that nature. But there's no right and wrong answers, because you can support your answers that I might not agree with, because As a lawyer, I can tell you that the law changes because someone opposed the way it was then. New legislation was written, cases that were written to overturn previous cases, such as separate but equal. Plessy versus Ferguson was overturned in 1954 by the famous Brown versus the Board of Education case, which, if you studied constitutional law, you'll know about that. So someone decided separate but equal was not good enough anymore, and so therefore that was done away with. Anyway, there's a whole lot of things that are taking place in our country, and so it is a skill that you need to have. Ethics and professional responsibility. Operate on an ethical fashion. That is, that you don't necessarily collude with your teammate. There's been law enforcement officers who've gotten in trouble, either been incarcerated or lost their because of the fact that they are ethical fashion. I'm talking about even as going as far as preparing reports to support each other when in fact the reports were not really what really happened. We had a case here in Chicago, Laquan McDonald, that resulted in a police officer going to jail because of the fact that their video, the police dash cam video, demonstrated that the person used excessive force. But there were 4 officers who were indicted for writing reports that supported the defendant's statements as to what happened, but the video contradicted that. Those individuals were tried and found not guilty by a judge, not a jury, and then the agency that oversees police in Chicago recommended and terminated those 4 officers. So now they're out of work because of unethical practices. So unethical practices can put you in a bad position. Professional responsibility, every field. As a lawyer, when I practiced, I operated under professional responsibility and was held responsible for operating in that vein. And so you're going to have to recognize that whatever area that you work in, you're going to have a code of professional responsibility, and you're going to have to abide by that and know what that is. In school, how do we deal with ethics and professional responsibility? Because of the fact that we have a violation policy down here, the academic integrity policy, and you'll be able to read that on your own there as well. And then information literacy, being able to use proper information, utilizing sources. Never use Wikipedia. You'll see that in your syllabus, in your rubrics as well. And so you'll have a chance to utilize these transferable skills throughout this course and other courses as well. The last thing I'm going to talk about on this is the late assignment policy. You will have, it says here, up to 7 days after a deadline. If you submit your assignment 1 day later, you lose 10%. Each day, you lose an additional 10%. And it says that you have 7 days. But listen to me and pay close attention. It says here, in some cases, students may be asked to complete an alternate assignment for equivalent points. I don't really do that. And I haven't done that pretty much. I did that one time because I had a student who had a military assignment. And I don't penalize military people. But the point of the matter is that the assignments have to be on time, and you will lose those points. Regarding discussion posts, each day that your discussion post is late, I take away a point. And then it talks about online discussions conclude at the end of the current week. I already talked about that. and it says Postmate after that will not be accepted. Well, you'll know they're not accepted because you'll get a 0. So now you have the late policy requirement. Now, here's the statement that I want you to hone in on. Instructors may waive the late penalty in case of extenuating circumstances as determined by me, not your dean, not your advisor, or anybody else. They might suggest, but I have the final word. And the reason for that is because of the fact that it is incumbent on the student to let me know contemporaneously with the problem that's happening. I am very, 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 very flexible in terms of working with students, but I can't work with something that I don't know. So that's why I have that open policy. I'm probably the most accessible professor that you're ever going to run across. One time a student posted in the evaluation afterwards that they couldn't reach me. Well, the school knew better than that, because if one student says that, or 2 students out of 100 and something say that, there's something wrong with that, because I respond very quickly to student issues, and we'll spend a lot of time with students to make sure that they understand things. Moving right along, we're already at the hour, and we got quite a bit more to go. Don't worry about the labs, and you can't make up the exams. So anyway, say this over and over. May students submit work at the last day of the academic term, unless an incomplete has been requested and granted. I'm not going to talk about that. That's something that I don't bring to you. That's something between you and your advisor. And then the academic integrity policy, take time to read this, particularly pay attention to the plagiarism part. But remember, I talked about there are 2 kinds of plagiarism. And the plagiarism involving Grammarly is not exactly the same, though it could be a part of that as well. And that's it for the syllabus. All right. So now I want to go back to the classroom before we go into the course calendar. And I want to go back, and I want you to take a few minutes and listen to this academic video, this academic integrity video. I'm going to remove my head. And then there's closed caption on it too as well.
What is academic integrity? Academic integrity is making decisions in your academic life that are based on honesty, trust, fairness, responsibility, and respect. This means being honest in the work you do, while respecting the work that others do. So what is cheating? Cheating means distributing or receiving answers or information by any means other than those expressly permitted by an assignment's requirements or an instructor. Some examples of cheating include asking fellow students for answers or copying answers during the test, using notes, devices, or materials during the test that your instructor has not approved, purchasing papers from websites or other sources, copying your classmates' work, listing a classmate's misconduct, and other violations as noted in the academic integrity policy that can be found in all course syllabi. Always ask your professor if it's okay to use notes during the test or to work together with classmates on an assignment or quiz. Now let's talk about plagiarism. Plagiarism means using another individual's work without giving them credit or taking another person's work and claiming it as your work. Some examples of plagiarism are turning in an assignment that someone else wrote, copying words or ideas from someone else. This can be a library resource, course textbook, internet resource, or other material without giving the original creator credit, failing to put quoted works in quotation marks, or using someone else's ideas in your essays, but changing a few of the words to make it sound like the words are your own. Plagiarism is not just about written words and ideas. It's possible to plagiarize images, graphs, coding, or video as well. So how can you avoid plagiarism? Cite your sources, both in the body of your paper and in-text citations, and on your references page. Whenever you want to use words, images, media, or ideas that were created by another person, you should cite that person appropriately as the source of that information.
But how does academic integrity relate to the work world? Is it just a college thing?
No. Integrity in the workplace starts with good practices and skills built while you are a student. Would you turn in a project document to your manager as your own when someone else wrote it? Not if you want to keep your job. Individuals can be reprimanded or even fired from their job for plagiarism. Following academic integrity guidelines while you are in school builds those skills and ethical practices that carry through to the workforce.
Okay, I understand how they're connected, but what do I do if I need more help?
If you have questions on the academic integrity policy, consult your course syllabus, talk with your instructor or dean, and if you need assistance with APA citation style or how to avoid plagiarism, contact the Rasmussen library team through our live chat or schedule a research appointment on our library website or through the resources tab of your course. If you would like APA tutoring, schedule an appointment with one of our peer tutors on the course resources tab.
Okay, let me plug this back in. All right, so I wanted to take time to share with you the academic integrity policy, and you can go back and look at that yourself if you'd like, just by going under the resources tab. All right, so you want to make sure that you do check that out. So now let's take a look at your course calendar. There we go. And there it is. And it tells you when the class started, which was yesterday, where we are today, and it tells you that your initial posts and reply posts are due, as I said earlier, Saturday. And then it tells you your written assignment is due on Sunday, along with the, you see two check marks. There are two due dates. One is for the written assignment, and the other is for this, your key phrase that I will give you at the end. And then you'll see, notice if you pay attention, you'll notice that starting in week 2, which starts on Monday, you will see that your initial posts are due on Tuesdays. You'll also see that your lectures are Tuesdays for the rest of this course at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time and will last roughly an hour. Then your reply posts are due Saturday. And then you'll see how quickly we go through all the way until we get to September 13th, which is just a little over a month. That's when the course ends, that Friday the 13th, all right? So, and then you see your lectures are all Tuesdays, your written assignments. So this is your last Sunday assignment, week 5, and then this is when your week 6 stuff is due. So I wanted to share that with you. You can click on your course calendar, and it's not just information, but if you click on it, for example, and open it, it'll tell you some of the same things that I've already talked about. It tells you what your discussion post topic is. Same thing. All right. So that's the course calendar. So now let's go into the syllabus. I mean, not the syllabus. Let's actually go into showing you what a typical module is like. The module 1, you'll see your lesson content, and then you'll see your assignments. Now, here are your actual assignments. These are things that are graded. Okay, these are things that are graded. Showing you your discussion post, and it tells you some facts and information that you need to consider. And then your written assignment. Now, notice the written assignment, and it tells you there's scenario 1, 2, 3. Then it tells you for each of the scenario, a minimum of 3 pages. Now, listen to me. I don't mean you have to have 3 pages for each scenario, but address the following for each scenario in a minimum of 3 pages. What that means is that each one should really basically be 1 page, pretty much, and that you should be able to follow the requirements as well as provide the requirements for your guide, not your guide, but for the assignments, APA, citations, and so forth. But I have that in the rubric. But then, again, this is something that I showed you earlier, and you'll see that in every week. And what it does, it provides you to help you with the assignments as well. So now, let's go up here and click on the actual assignment. And it's going to open up 2 things. Your due date and your rubric. And if you click on View Rubric, you will see the part that you have for each one of these. And it tells you each of these are equally balanced. So you got to do scenario 1, 2, and 3 and answer these issues and address them. Minimum of 3 pages. All right. I mean, you can go more, but it's at minimum of 3. And then your APA citations and references should be included in each of them as well. And I've already talked about these formatted things. And you'll see this same thing over and over generally in organization, content, grammar, and APA citation and overall format. This is where you'll have variations depending on the assignments. All right. So under each section, I will make comments. If for example, I'll start out by telling you that I appreciate you completing the assignment, but then I'll tell you if you did something bad. I'll tell you if you did well. And if you did something bad, I'll specifically address what that thing bad is that you did and how you and what you need to do to fix it. And they're found under this. A lot of people say, I don't see the comments. Yeah, they're there. They're there. And you just have to look at it. I can't show you any examples of it because it would violate the policy of providing information concerning students. But anyway, the point of the matter is that in the grade book itself, you will see this followed by my remarks, and you'll see a checkbox. If you see a checkbox, that means I checked that section. And then if there's some deficiencies, I'll say you lost 3 points because you didn't do this or you need to do that. All right? So very important that you pay attention to that thing. So rubrics are important. And then your live lecture, it tells you when your due date is, which I already told you is the 11th by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. So that's the assignments. So basically the assignments consist of the discussion posts, the written assignment, and your live lecture. That's the written graded stuff. Now, let's go back to what a student sent me in terms of under the lesson content tab. Now, it tells you what your objectives, but out here, it all says assignments. Don't worry about that. But if you go down, you'll see your reading is assigned, and then types of law. What is crime? Fourth Amendment, key terms, and then practice. When you get for practice, these are things that will help you. Now, I already addressed these. So what a student does is they stop and look at this and say, well, I can't find anything. Yes, you can if you scroll down. Types of law. And what it does, it provides you with information. And I'm not going to go over these today, but it tells you how you navigate and take the time to go through this. This is something that will help you understand the module. What is a crime? It tells you about what's misdemeanor, what is felony, and it gives some examples and things like that. You should be aware that the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor, and you'll hear me say this during the course of the next 5 weeks after this week, a misdemeanor is an offense which you go to jail for less than a year. A felony is one where you go for more than a year. Misdemeanors generally send people to jail. Felonies generally send people to prison. And then they gave some examples here. All right. And then jails versus prison, I kind of like shared that. All right. Then the Fourth Amendment probable cause, you'll take time to go through and look at this. Become familiar with the Fourth Amendment. You can download it as a Word document to save for yourself. There are some exceptions to search and seizure without having to obtain a warrant. Plain view exception. Consent. Automobile. Search incident. I'm not covering these in detail today because I want to make sure that we finish up in a timely fashion. So then we come down to key terms. Now, this is something that will help you to prepare, and we encourage you not to skip it. So how do you use this? You click on key terms. Firefox, I got to give the options. Allow. Okay, there we go. So now I got it. You might run that in yours. Just read what it says and then fix it. That's all. So flashcards. So you click on flashcards. That's the best way to do it. And then you can set that up and allow it. Okay, so now here are the flashcards. So it'll ask, the act of police taking a person into custody and is no longer free to leave. What is that? You will see and learn in this course that that is arrest. Arrest does not necessarily have to say the word arrest. If you're not free to leave, then you're under arrest. And then the next one, a prohibited or mandated act that carries a prescribed sanction or punishment enacted by a legal authority and published to put citizens on notice. That is, you flip that over and it tells you it's a crime. And then you go next. A serious criminal act that is punishable by a fine and or more of 1 year in prison. What did I just tell you? That's a felony. A minor offense that is often associated with non-criminal traffic violations and punishable with a fine and demerit points. Infraction. And so these are things that will help you in terms of understanding the module. All right. Let's go back to the next one. Here we go. Oh, taking time to load. Loading, loading, loading. Okay. I want to close that. There we go. This is what I was trying to get back to. Okay, so then you notice again. See what it is? Where it says, what is crime? And each of these, so then you in practice of an offense in each of these. So you scroll down again, and you have the same type of thing, practice elements. You click on that, and start the activity. Again, these are things that you don't use in place of reading. And by the way, the PowerPoints that I give you are basically an outline of the chapter to help you as well. Okay, so now this tells you that, let me move this over. Let me move this. There we go. Click on the element below that is, see the not? See, a lot of students will read, oh, is, and skip that not. That is not an element of armed robbery. How will you know what armed robbery is? Because you did your reading and studying before this. If you change your mind, drag the hotspot marker to change its position. So which one is not? Intentionally entering a dwelling, take property with force. It is not an element of armed robbery. Submit it. That's going to be the right one. Correct. Armed robbery is the intentional taking of property of another with force or threat of force. Armed robbery doesn't typically involve entering the dwelling of another. It's not required that that takes place. Identify the elements of simple battery by selecting the correct answer for each pair. So element 1, battery, simple battery. Is it accidentally or is it intentionally? Which one do you think it is? Accidentally or intentionally? You can type that in the chat box and I'll see it. I already kind of gave a clue. Which one is it? Is it accidentally or intentionally? You might not know because you might not have gone through the material. Let's see if intentionally is correct. Let's see if element 2 causes bodily harm, threatens bodily harm. To property or to another? We're talking about battery. With or without consent? Without consent. So let's see how we did. Yep. So you go through. And these are things that will help you. Here's one, final one I'm going to do, that is not an element of premeditated murder. This is not an element of premeditated. Is it planned, intentional, great bodily harm of a human? Is not. Is it planned, intentional? This is one that can trick you. Is it planned, premeditated? That means basically planned. Is it intentional? Yes. Does it cause great bodily harm? Yes. Of a human. Try this one. Premeditated murder is the planned, intentional killing. Causing great bodily harm is a serious injury to another, such as broken bones, and is less than death. That's where you get tricked there, okay? And then the last one is, which is not an element of disorderly conduct. See, people get tricked. They say disorderly conduct typically occurs when a person engages in fighting, boisterous words. So I did that so I can show you how you can get tricked. So, which is not, and not an element of disorderly conduct. This one right here. Anyway, let's go back and anyway, it's this one. Engages in peaceful protesting is not disorderly conduct the same. So anyway, I just want to show you how you can even, if you make a mistake, you can go back and you see what you did wrong. And then let's scroll down. Classifications of crimes. All these are things are for tools to help you. Start the activity. Match the type of crime with the proper classification. Burglary with a sentence of 18 months in prison. Is that a misdemeanor or a felony? I already told you the answer to that. So what you do is you try to attach it to the right one. See if it connects to that. It will. Damage to property with a 30-day jail sentence. Because remember, it's less than a year. And then finally, driving without a seatbelt is an infraction. And then you submit it, and it's going to tell you, nice work. And you do the same thing. And so you can go through and do the same thing here. Match the proper crime classification by dragging one. Disorderly conduct and a 1-day jail sentence. You know that already. Homicide. Traffic citation with a fine. Okay. And so you submit it, and then it tells you were correct there. So, so you do the same thing over again. And then the last thing I'm going to show you regarding this is this. The quiz. Very, very, very important because it gives you a practice of the exam that you're going to have in week 3. And it starts by telling you what the quiz, what they look like. What are codified misdemeanors and felonies known as? Are they civil law? Remember you saw that earlier. Administrative law, case law, or criminal law? The answer here is given because you will have learned that from what you read earlier. The Fourth Amendment is an example of which type of law? Civil law, case law, administrative law, or constitutional law. The Fourth Amendment is part of what? This thing. So therefore, so these things help you. Burglary is an example of a blank that subjects the offender to a prison term of 1 year or more. You already should know automatically. It's this one. What level of proof is necessary for police to make an arrest? To make an arrest, reasonable suspicion, preponderance of the mere preponderance, probable cause, or beyond a reasonable doubt. you're going to discover this is the answer from your work. And then the final one I'm going to do, because there are more. Which exception permits police officers to seize obvious contraband as long as they are legally present when they see it? Legally present when they see it. It kind of gives you the answer right there. And there it is right there. So, you know, and that's right, so plain view. And so those are the techniques that you use in terms of that. And I've pretty much covered how the module works so that you understand how so. If you join in late, then you need to make sure that you take a look at the video that I've presented to you. So now I'm going to go back to the course homepage. I'm going to share with you this information. Adversity is the springboard to success. I'm going to try to do it in as short a fashion as I can before 10 o'clock today so that you will understand. All right, so now let's go back. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to tell you how you can find this information. First of all, I'm going to give you anyway, I'm going to tell you how this all started. Yours truly started in life at a very early age, living in a tough part of Chicago called the West Side of Chicago. In 1957, my dad was killed by a man who was a roomer in the house. He had rented a room, and my dad confronted him, as I found out later, about issues that he was potentially having an affair with my mother. Now, remember, I found all this out later. Well, my dad and him got into a fight. The fight ended in our bedroom, where it was 5 younger girls and myself, and I as a 7-year-old and the only boy. The man took out a knife and stabbed my dad in the forehead right in front of my face. I will never forget it because I have a photographic memory. Well, following that, the man did not go to jail. He ended up they ended up having the case dismissed because they didn't have sufficient evidence, because it was said that my dad was the aggressor, which was not true. But anyway, the man then began to sleep openly in the house with my mother. For the next 5 years, until 1962, I lived in a house of domestic violence, where this man constantly beat my mother. He would beat her profusely and beat her really bad. And I saw that on a daily basis. My mother then had 2 other children by this man, and they were both girls. So therefore, by 62, I had 7 sisters, and I was the only boy. So by this time, I'm 12. Well, the area that we were living in turned pretty bad. The gangs and so forth were involved, and but the gangs did something highly unusual. They agreed not to recruit me because they knew what I had gone through, and that was when the gang members had some scruples. And then also, this was before the introduction of drugs and high-powered weapons and stuff like that. But it me. But my mom said no, she still wanted to move. So we moved from that area in 62 into Gary, Indiana. Gary, Indiana, an area called Terrytown, which was a pretty nice community at that time. And so she rented out the house that we owned, which was a 2-flat in Chicago on the west side. So we moved there, and my mom, you know, did a lot of things with us. An aunt came from Michigan to stay with us, and the beatings stopped. There were no beatings that took place after that because it was still pretty rough, because she carried a gun, and this man knew. So it was still a pretty rough situation that we were living under. So here we come to Memorial Day of '63, where I'm 13 years old, having just turned 13 in May 3rd of that year. And my mother had a restaurant downtown Gary, and she told me to take care of the house and the kids, and that I commonly did that, and she and left. Well, the next day after that, well, let me say this. I woke up this morning because there was smoke in the house, and I opened the windows and doors, and I looked and I saw the car pull away that my mother and this guy, his name was Scott, Webster Scott, had. And I went and looked at my mother's room, and the bed hadn't been slept in. But that wasn't unusual, because she would oftentimes stay out real late, operating the restaurant and doing whatever else she did. The fact of the matter is I was in charge of the house. Well, this particular occasion, the day after Memorial Day, she didn't come home. Sometime during that day, after we were up and everything around the house, two gentlemen came and introduced themselves as Gary police officers, and they announced to me as the oldest that my mom had been found dead in Chicago. I lost it, guys. I started yelling and screaming this guy's name, Scott, Scott, Scott. And then I looked around and saw that my sisters were, you know, they were crying and everything. So I had to calm down because I was all they had left. Well, we were taken from that house into the city to stay with an aunt in the south side of Chicago in an area called Chatham. And my aunt, my mother's sister, had us to come there. She said immediately it was temporary, and they were trying to determine what they were going to do with us. And they were leaning towards splitting us up, all 8 of us, and sending us to different places. And maybe even some of us might have ended up in foster care. Back in those days, it wasn't really that strong of a system. But anyway, the point of the matter is that we were going to be split up. Well, we were forced to do work in the house. My aunt let her kids do special things. They could go to the Y. They could participate in other activities, but we weren't allowed to do that. We had to earn our keep. Well, while living there, my aunt came, the other one I told you that she came back from Michigan, and she I didn't tell you earlier, she had left just before my mother was killed. So that was so she was gone. So then she came back, and she told her sister, who was my aunt, that she was going to take us, and that we were going to she was going to have a house built, and she did, in an area called Maple Park, in the Morgan Park area, further south in Chicago. And so all 8 of us kids moved into that house. Well, while living in that house, it was a very nice community. It was I had my own bedroom for the second time in life, because I had my own bedroom when I was living in Gary for that 1 year, and I had it when I lived in this second house that I'm telling you about. Well, I had problems again because my aunt's husband and I didn't get along, because he wanted me to take his name, and I did not want to do that, with no disrespect to him, because I wanted to carry on my dad's name. As it turned out, we had conflict right off the bat. I was not allowed to do a lot of different things. And so anyway, I got tired of dealing with it, so I asked my aunt if I could. I had heard this lady on the radio, and I went and found this lady. And then I asked this lady to be my mother, and the person laughed. This was in '64, and I was 14 years old. And she laughed, and we became friends and stayed friends for many, many years. Just speeding ahead to you, years and years later, she legally adopt me, not my sisters, and became legally my mother. But she was off and on able to get involved in my life because my aunt and uncle blocked it. So anyway, back to 64, when we moved there, I also discovered, and this is critical, that Scott had pled guilty and was going to receive 10 years, which I wasn't happy about, but then I was even more unhappy when I found out that 10 meant 5 because of a day for a day. And then further, when I found out that for good behavior, he could have a 1.5 years cut off, and he could actually only serve 3.5 years. So good people, 3.5 years for killing 2 people. Well, I was troubled, and when I get troubled, I ask questions. Someone ultimately shared with me that there's these people called lawyers that operate and deal with the legal system. So I went to the library at my school, and the librarian gave me a book, and I read the book cover to cover in one night, all about lawyers or attorneys. The next day, anybody I met, I introduced myself as Richard Wright and said, I'm going to be a lawyer. This is in 1964. Immediately when I did that, people started coming up against me saying I was aiming too high, that I didn't have what it took. The aunt that we stayed with at first that told us we were going to be there temporarily and we're going to split us up, she definitely said, she says, no, you won't be able to succeed at that. But I learned something that I share with my students and I share with people. Don't take time to tell somebody, I'm going to show you. Just do it. So anyway, I went from that particular point in the neighborhood to finding myself wanting to be out of the house because this man, my aunt's husband, he and my aunt used to get into it. I told you she carried a gun. He had a gun. And there were times when they would get argumentative and he would pull his gun. And then one day he pulled the gun and told all of us to line up against the wall. And I was able to get out of the house. And then I heard a shot fired. And then I went and got the police. But I got in trouble about that with my aunt. But anyway, the point of the matter is it was still problematic. They said that the gun went off accidentally. Ceiling. So anyway, it was bad. It was rough. But then I would find out something that I didn't get along with him. He had 2 of his sons to come stay with us. And then they would try to intimidate me. And I wasn't easy to be intimidated. And then I would find out years and years and years later that this man actually sexually assaulted my sisters, several of them. And so it was a pretty bad situation. So I spent a lot of time out in the neighborhood visiting friends, and then I would get home when I had to be home and go to bed, go to school. I had a paper route at that time, and then I ended up getting rid of my paper route because of a blizzard, and then start working at McDonald's after school. So I wasn't able to participate in a lot of activities after school because I had to work. I did for a little while participate in football, which was very little, but basketball and baseball were my big areas. So anyway, I found myself in a situation where it was pretty rough. So I got involved with the local church called Maple Park United Methodist, and I started volunteering to do things at the church and got to know the families there and so forth and so on. I'd even go to the church services on Sundays. Well, I found myself in a situation where one of my friends, their mom and dad and I became really close. And so, and then also I had a Sunday school teacher, her and her husband came close to. So I had people outside of my house. In addition, the lady I told you she picked me up sometimes, and I could to get out of that house because I was really tired of all that drama that I told you I have been through since I was a kid. Well, anyway, the church offered me a scholarship. All my aunt and uncle had to do was sign. My uncle said no because he's not taking my name, and I wouldn't do it. So I didn't get it. So I announced then, by this time I was a senior in high school. We were talking 68 actually. I was heading toward graduation in 69. I said, well, I'm going to move out because I will be 19 and I can move out. And I will be a graduate from high school. So I ended up going on and in school, deciding that one of the ways I might be able to do this was to apply to the FBI and, you know, go to school in Washington and then work part-time there while I worked my way up. But I was rejected by the FBI because at that time I would find out years later that J. Edgar Hoover, who was the director, was summarily dismissing minorities and females. So I ended up deciding, okay, here's what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to go to a junior college. And so my aunt said that she was moving after high school into the city in a rough area. I said, well, I'm not going there. So one of my friends who were members of that church, their parents said that they would let me come and stay at their house while I determined, you know, I can get enough money. So two things happened. I registered for night classes at the City Colleges of Chicago, a school called Loop, which is now Harold Washington College. I also, at the same time, got an opportunity that my friend's mom had a friend who was a secretary in a big law firm downtown and got me a job as a messenger working in the mailroom of this big Jewish law firm. And it was a corporate law. So I was happy, and I took the job and worked every day dressed up with a shirt and tie. A lot of the guys would wear polo shirts, but I would have shirt and tie. Well, anyway, I ended up finding myself where I decided a year later to get married. I got married, and then shortly after that, here comes 2 kids. In the meantime, I was in school. My wife at that time was in school. She was studying to be a teacher, and I was studying political science. Well, at any rate, I ended up doing pretty well in school. I stayed on the honor roll and dean's list. I didn't have a car. I was on public transportation, and I had these books that I had to carry because there was no digital stuff. So anyway, I studied on the train, the L, and would come home. And so anyway, the law firm promoted me from a from a messenger to a file clerk. And then I became a law librarian when something happens to the law librarian. And then they found out I knew how to do legal research that I taught myself. And I ended up getting a job as what they call clerk, which is what they call it. They didn't do a lot of criminal stuff. They did a lot of civil stuff. But I still was able to go sit alongside the lawyers. So I found myself moving forward. In the meantime, there were, I was going on, doing well, public transportation, and then I found myself in a situation where it was time to leave the junior college, and I went to Roosevelt University, where you saw in my profile in the student lounge, and I registered for classes. All this is at night and Saturdays. I'd have to be at work in the morning at 8:30. I'd have to be in class by 4:30. I'd get off work at 4 o'clock, and then I'd get out of school at 10 o'clock. And then I'd have to start that whole thing all over again. I went to classes Monday Thursdays, and then Saturdays as well. So it was pretty tough, but I stayed on the Dean's List and honor roll. In the meantime, it was time for me to determine law schools. Well, I had already decided that I wanted to go to Northwest University School of Law, and I said I'm going to apply there. I was told to apply to 3 schools, and again, I still had these naysayers that told me that I was overreaching. But the people at the law firm, by the way, understood where I was coming from, because I didn't tell you this earlier. When I first got my job as a messenger at the law firm, I who I was and told them I was going to become a lawyer. And they would report in their bulletin that was passed all around the office my success that I was having as far as school was concerned. So anyway, I took the LSAT, which I didn't do too well in. But when it came time to apply to the law school, I put together a package. Now, the application is about 6 pages long. But when I got through with that application and exhibits to support it, it fit in a big box. And I sent it over to the law school in near downtown Chicago. The school had said at that time that they didn't do interviews and things like that. They had a tremendous number of students vying for each seat. Well, I got a call, a job, from the law school inviting me to come out as an exception. So I did. I went and I met with about 4 people there, and they asked me questions about my package and so forth, and they saw my GPA and how I had done very well under circumstances of raising 2 kids at that particular time. And so the truth of the matter is that they began to see that I was very serious about what I was doing. And so anyway, I found myself in the situation where I was actually doing pretty well. And so the law school people stopped after about, seems like we were in there a couple hours, and then they took a break, and they came back, and they said, we like everything we saw, but we don't make decisions about accepting students through this method. But we will tell you we like everything we saw. We heard what you said. We believe that you're going to become a lawyer one day, but we don't make decisions like this. But what we are going to do for you is we're going to let you know this. They said, and I'll never forget it, we're going to send you some correspondence that'll make you happy. And that was their informal way of telling me that I was accepted. So I got accepted into the law school, started in the class of 1978, which started in 1975 in August. Began attending the school. The first thing I was told is that I would have to leave my job because they didn't allow you to work in the first year of law school. And then secondly, I was told that they didn't have night classes or anything like that. So I had to leave my job. My wife at that time, she graduated in the meantime with her degree in education, and she began teaching. So it was okay. So I was, in school, studying hard, and then about a month after school started, we started in August, September of '75, Chicago had its first teacher strike, and they went on strike, and I ended up losing income and everything. So it was pretty tough on me in school. So I reached a stage where my grades were going down, and so I went and told one of my professors that I was going to take a leave and probably come back. She said, before you do that, come to my office. So I went to her office and I met with her, and she stood in front of the door and made me promise in that room that I would stick it out. So this is what defined as sticking out. We lost so much money that I had to study by candlelight. We couldn't pay the electric bill. The apartment we were in, we worked out some concessions from the landlord. We had not much money for food, so we sent the two kids at that time to stay with their grandmother, which was not very far away, my wife's mother at that time. So anyway, we proceeded on through school, and while I was in law school, I got really heavily involved. I met one of my adjunct professors by the name of Eugene Pencham. He was a distinguished criminal lawyer in Chicago. And his son introduced me to him because he was one of my classmates. He was actually the year in front of me in law school. So anyway, Mr. Pencham, who I will call Judge Pencham because he later on became a judge, found out about me. I was invited along with several other lawyers to the house, his house, and he found out about what I had gone through, and he said I needed closure. So what he did was he took me to the criminal courts building and helped me to find information about the files. So I learned a lot more about the cases. Then he made a suggestion to me that I become a criminal defense lawyer if I was going to learn about the system as opposed to being a prosecutor. And I respected him, and I took him up on that. It wasn't easy, but I did it. So anyway, while I was in law school, I ended up doing research on the criminal code as my senior research project to help rewrite the statute to include Class X felonies in Illinois, habitual offenders, what they called House Bill 1500. So I helped research that. So I did all of this while I was in school. In the meantime, while I was in school, I worked the second year in the summer at the law firm, and so I found myself continuing to work. Well, anyway, the bottom line is this: is that I was doing okay, and because I was on a mission to become a lawyer. Well, as it was, I ended up graduating in 1978. When I graduated in 1978, I sent out invitations. The very first invitation I sent out was to that aunt. You remember the one way back when I was telling you that told me I couldn't do it? She got the first invitation, and she was able to see that I did it. That's how she learned I did it. So I ended up graduating. I announced to the law firm that I probably wasn't going to stay in corporate law too long, so I didn't. In 1980, I left and started working with other lawyers. I didn't like their ethics, so I ended up going on and starting my own law practice. I did radio and television. Know Your Rights was the name of my radio show, and Rights was spelled W-R-I-G-H-T-S. And so I coming along and doing pretty well in criminal law. I ended up growing so much that I hired other lawyers, which created a lot of problems for me that are not relevant to this. But anyway, the point of the matter is that I was going through and doing what I needed to do. In the meantime, my first wife and I split, and we had our third child, was born the same year I graduated from law school, 78, and all three were girls. So I ended up going on with my life and continuing to raise those kids. But I found myself in the situation where I wanted, to get married. So I got married again. 87, I was divorced. 88, I was remarried. And the young lady I was married this time, she and I had another daughter. So I had 4 daughters by 87. And by 88, well, actually, 88 we got married. 1990, the 4th daughter was born. So in the meantime, my law practice was going on. I was doing radio and making a lot of guest appearances. 91 to 93, I ended up going to seminary because I became a minister. and you saw that in my profile there as well. So the key I'm telling you guys is that I went through a whole lot of challenges that prepared me. While I was married to my second wife, her mother became the village president of a tough town in the south suburbs, and she recruited me to be her village attorney, which I said I would take the job only if I could carry a gun. And the only way that I was told I could carry a gun is if I reached the stage where I went to was a police officer. So I became a part-time police officer, went to the academy, and so forth. I participated in drug raids and did that from '89 to '93. In the meantime, I was still practicing law as a defense attorney in cases that didn't affect having to do with the jurisdiction where I was a police officer. So found out that the chief of police was corrupt. So another chief came in and he turned me into his internal affairs investigator. And, you know, so I was able to carry, I had my badge, I had my gun. I didn't have to wear a uniform. I always wore shoulder holsters. Or when I was involved in the raids, then I, of course, you know, dressed the way you see the TV shows Cops. So I did that '89 to '93. Well, it came out in '94 that my wife and my former pastor, who was the pastor of the church that I joined at that time, ended up doing their thing, so we got divorced. And so I announced in that around that time that in 2000 that I was going to retire. And so I actually started to close my office in about '96, 4 years before that, and worked from my home and was weaning my caseload down. 2000, so anyway, I met a young lady in '94, and we got married in '94, that I'm married to now. That's her you saw in the pictures. And we just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, the 28th of July. We went to Orlando, Florida. Anyway, she and I now have 4 kids as well. I got my first boy, who's 24 now, a daughter who's 20, who's also a student at Rasmussen College, and then I have a son who's 19, and then an 11-year-old baby girl in addition to the other 4. So I'm moving along with my life. Well, after announcing I was retiring, I began teaching special education. I ran a janitorial company for a while, and then I started doing closings. In 2011, it was brought to my attention there was this school that I'd never heard of, Rasmussen College, and that they were looking for someone to teach residentially business law. And I applied for the position and received the position as an adjunct. And I started there, and then I let the dean know quickly that I was a criminal justice person, and they put me in the criminal justice department. And I remained an adjunct professor until 2014 there, and became what they call state program coordinator of the School of Justice Studies in Illinois, where I was responsible for the Romeoville campus, the Tinley Park, Mokina campus, the Aurora campus, and the Rockford campus. And I'd had to interact with students and so forth. Well, the program then went online, and then they changed our roles and turned us into full-time professors or instructors. So I worked my way up from an instructor, from an assistant to an associate to an assistant professor, and now I'm full professor, Dr. Richard Wright. And I have been teaching criminal justice at the school, and I come with my background of adversity to students to explain to them why, first of all, I'm empathetic to your challenges, but secondly, why I am so tough, because the system let me down, and you'll have to hear the whole story if you come in late, that adversity is the springboard to success, and it launched me and drove me to what I am today. And so I work pretty hard, and I expect you to work hard, but I'm here to help you. I have mentored a number of students that have been mine. I have helped students from academic probation to the dean's list by working hard with them, even though I just came back from a graduation in Newport Richey, where one of my students that I had who earned an associate's degree started out in Introduction to Corrections, and he took this course and Drugs and Crime and some other courses. I surprised him by showing up at his graduation the 27th of July, because that's how I am about students. I believe in student success, and that's how I operate. So I wanted to share that story with you. And so I want to give you a key word as I end this session today, rather lengthy, again reminding you that the sessions from this point on will be 1 hour, and that they will be on Tuesday nights. As you look at this video, you will see. And so I want to give you a one-word keyword. There's actually 2 words. Study hard. That's it. Now, I hope you don't tune in just to get that, to get your points, but I hope you will listen to this lengthy video and pay attention to the instructions that I've given. So at this time, I'm going to terminate this session. I'm going to wish you guys the best. If you have any questions, I told you in the lecture how to reach out to me, and I'm going to wish you a good day, and thank you for taking the time to come out today, those of you who did. And also, we'll see you next Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard with our Week 2 lecture. So I'm going to say good afternoon.